Welcome everyone to Zoom into Books this morning. Today we're going to be speaking with children's book author Linda Hickam with guest interviewer Burke Allen from Allen Media Strategies. Burke, take it away.
Hey, thank you so much for being here today for a very special simulcast edition of our Big Time Talker podcast, brought to you by Speaker Match, the world's largest online virtual speakers bureau, and our friends at Zoom into Books. And we are doing the show both on the podcast form and on Facebook and YouTube, so you can check out our author and see her in all her glory and check out her brand new book. It's her first one, The Tale of Little Bit. And there's a companion coloring book too. Linda Hickam joins us, and if that last name sounds familiar, Linda has spent a few years around New York Times #1 best-selling author, Homer Hickam. And Linda, welcome to the show, and congratulations on your first book.
Thank you so much, Burke. It is so much fun to see you in a different way, promoting me instead of Homer. You've been a friend for many, many years and so much help to us.
This has got to be exciting for you. I mean, you just rolled this book out a month ago after sort of being the cheerleader for Homer all these years. Tell me about the process of the idea and then sort of taking a book to market, because I think there are probably a lot of people who are listening and watching that have that idea in the back of their head and say, I could write a book, but I don't really know how. So take us from stem to stern. How'd you do it?
Well, we had this little fish, and all these stories that are attached to the pond that we have in our front yard, and we still have it. We have 15 large goldfish because Homer takes such wonderful care of the pond. And I always had thought that the stories attached to Little Bit were so much fun, and everyone loved him, and we loved him to death. We called him the $1,000 fish because we kept getting bigger and bigger aquariums as he grew. And I kept telling Homer, why don't you write something about Little Bit? He's so, I think it would make a great children's story. And he said, nah, I've got other things to write. You write it. And I said, I am not the writer in the family. You are. And so, the last time. And so I started pecking away at it. And then, I gave it up for a good while. And then finally, I just, decided to finish it. And so I gave it to him, if he offered to edit it. And I said, no, I want it to be completely mine. And so he... And then I thought, well, I'm being real foolish. A #1 New York Times author has offered to, to look it over for me. So I gave it to him, and he kind of tricked me because he sat on the couch and he said, well, I've read your book. And, and he's giving me this frowny face, and he said, I love it, so he said, I wouldn't do a thing, sort of, but he did help me a lot as an editor. He said, you've been my editor on all these books. Let me make a few suggestions. And just like he takes my suggestions on his books, sometimes I took them, sometimes I didn't. But what really was wonderful is that Dreama Denver it has been a children's author for Kathy for Headline Books. And I just called her up. She's a friend from all the festivals in West Virginia. And she's written the Four Bears in a Box series and other books that have done well. And so she's the only children's author I knew. And I called her up and I said, so what next, Dreama? I've got a book and I think it's ready to show someone. What do I do now? And she said, well, Linda, I love the concept. I just love what you're telling me. Do you mind if I called Kathy and told her about it and see if maybe she might be interested? And I'm like, well, yeah, be stupid not to. And so I did that. I mean, I let her do that. And she said, Kathy wants to see the manuscript. And I said, well, that's not the way it works. You have to write a query letter and you have to, that it doesn't happen like that. And so I did. And Kathy wrote back and said, I already said I'd like to see the manuscript. So I did that. And Kathy wonderfully said, I'd like to offer you a contract. So magic. It was magic. And I was so happy. because it's not just the story of a fish. It's in headline books likes to and always has interesting an interesting story, but with good lessons to learn,
Right, right.
teaching lessons to children or even adults. And she goes to many schools, and she and all of her authors put I hate to say morals, but some kind of lesson to be learned where the parents, you're kind of slipping in. And a little bit is about kindness, and it has a strong anti-bullying aspect, and it has friendship aspects and all these things that even as I was writing it, I was amazed that this little fish had taught all these people these things. So anyway, it was a lot of fun to write and to continue. And I got a wonderful artist, and Jan and I decided to write also a little coloring book to go with it, and with naturalist type of information at the top, so that the parents could kind of entertain the child when the child said, "What's this?" And they're like, "I don't know," but let's read it together and see.
How did you find, and by the way, you mentioned Kathy. Kathy Tietz is the publisher of Headline Books, who published The Tale of Little Bit, and it's available at headlinebooks.com and Amazon.com. But if people want an autographed copy of the book, where do they find it, Linda? If they want you to sign one?
Yeah, thank you for asking. On Homer's website, homerhickam.com, he offers that service for all of his wonderful friends that through the years have wanted all of his 19 best-selling books. And so we decided, rather than making a separate website, just to add mine onto his. And so if you open up homerhickam.com, you'll see a banner at the top to lead you to be able to buy it there, and it will be autographed any way that you like. Both books are there, and a priority mailing. And you can combine them. You can get, a Homer Hickam book for Christmas to someone, and a little bit to someone else in the same mailer coming to your home.
You mentioned the illustrator, and it's interesting in today's world because of technology. Sometimes authors never even meet the illustrator, and it's all done, on Zoom or on the phone. Mm-hmm. Tell me how you found your illustrator and how that relationship worked, because this vision is in your head a little bit. This is a real fish that you had. Yeah. So how did that whole thing happen?
Yeah, again, Dreama, wonderful Dreama. And she's got a brand new book out also about her husband, who was Bob Denver, out of Gilligan Islands fame, and their life together. So it's also with Headline Books. So check out all of her wonderful books, both for children and adults, with Headline Books. And she had used Jan Picolet before, and Kathy suggested many illustrators and other sources to find illustrators to me, and I looked at them also. But because Dreama had enjoyed working with Jan, and she had good prices and was easy to work with. Dreama had found her easy to work with. She's in Kentucky. I've never met her, but we've had many we work through Messenger, which is the not text. She doesn't text, and she does not like email, and she doesn't like to talk on the phone. So we work through Messenger. And but boy, have we used Messenger to go back and forth and back and forth. And yes, it was a little hard. And one of the hardest things of all things, Little Bit was born with a crooked tail. His little tail bent strongly to the right. And so he could only swim in circles. And that's why he was bullied in the pond. The other fish did not like that at all. That was wrong, so wrong. And they would not let him eat. He had a hard enough time getting to the food anyway, because he was swimming in spirals and, up and down in spirals and around the pond. So he was doing his best with his little bug eyes to get to the food.
Sure.
Which is why we brought him inside pretty quickly. But the so one of the hardest things at first was she was putting the tail on the wrong side. And she works in watercolor and pen. Well, she can do any media, actually. She's so versatile, and any style that I wanted. So once we established the style, and I said, well, let me look at all the pictures. We have tons of pictures of Little Bit, but most of them are pretty blurry. He actually was born in 2005. So that was, before the big cell phone photo bombing thing was happening. So
Right.
we even had to go back to slides and things like that.
Back in the olden days.
Yes, back the olden days. But we did find quite a few, and Kathy came up with the idea to use the real pictures of the fish in the front, and to say meet Little Bit and Buddy, his friend that we bought for the aquarium, because goldfish are social fish. So poor Little Bit, when the others in the pond would not accept him, he was heartbroken, too. He couldn't eat, plus they hated him. But the real fish are in here, and so that the children and the parents can say, look, there's Little Bit with his little bent tail.
So they know that it's not a made-up story because you have a real picture of Little Bit. Yeah.
Except my fish talk.
Is that a problem? I don't know.
I don't think so. Because they have things to say,
One of the great things about the book, and the book we're talking about, is The Tale of Little Bit. It's from Linda Hickam. It's a great children's book. And you just mentioned Buddy. Little Bit had a friend that sort of looked out for him. So in your heart of hearts, was there a theme that you wanted kids to get from reading that book? Because there were a lot of great messages, but was there one theme that really you said, I got to make sure that the kids pick this up?
Yeah, it definitely was. Well, it turned out to be the strongest, that if you see, because Buddy paved the way. This is the artist's rendition of Buddy, and
right.
He was an exotic goldfish. We just when he was chosen, he was just dipped into another tank by the proprietor there. We had brought Little Bit in because he seemed sick, droopy, and the proprietor Marvin said, well, I've got some medicine for him, but I think he's just lonely. I think he needs a friend. And so he just, he said, is this okay? And he dipped over in the next tank and threw this fish in. And they were both scared of each other at first because they were both very different, but they became besties. And so that friendship and being there always for your best friend when others are picking on them, bullying, or just not sure. So when Buddy had a talk with the other fish in the pond, I think that he was saying, look, because eventually they got so big that we couldn't keep them in aquariums anymore. They were nearly, both of them, well, Little Bit was always smaller, but they were as big as my palm, and so they really needed a huge aquarium. And we kept moving up, but this was several years, and we had kept such good care of them that they were healthy and fat. But when we finally said we've got to put them back in the pond so they have enough room, we were so scared because this in particular, this fish is leader fish, and he's got the spot on him, and you can see him here.
Yep.
There. I need to look there. He was the one that was bullying so bad, and we think that Buddy had a talk with the others and said, give him a chance. And that's what, and Buddy stood by a little bit. So friends learn, I think the thing to learn that I want the children to learn and the parents to discuss is that if you see someone in the schoolyard that's standing alone and doesn't have a friend, maybe he's got glasses and no one else does or something, and people are calling him Four Eyes or how cruel children can be. Why don't you decide to be his friend too? And I'll bet Buddy was saying, just give him a chance. I find him to be a fun fish. I like him. I think he's a good fish. Why don't you just give him a chance? Let's see. But Buddy stayed right there. When they got in the pond, Buddy would swim and Little Bit would be spinning around, going his way. But Buddy protected him. He was right next to him so that no one could, if they got an idea to nip him again like they used to, or butt him, they couldn't because that friend was right there. And the kids got it. When I did my beta reads with my friends' grandchildren, and I was amazed that 8-year-olds could read it. They could read it by themselves. Not having children, I didn't think, I thought they were too young, but
Sure.
quite a few of them could at 8. And some of the 6-year-olds, they could sound out the words and get quite a bit of it. But I expected parents to read it together and to be able to talk about what was happening. And it's long enough that it probably would take two sessions to read it at bedtime or such. But to learn that, just to stick up for your friend already. If all of a sudden your best friend is being called Four Eyes and picked on, don't abandon him and say, yeah, well, okay, I guess I don't like him now either. No, please stick up for him, and say, no, he's a good guy. You're wrong.
Steve, that's the kind of message. That's why this book, The Tale of Little Bit, is resonating with young readers. Look out for your friends. And that's why it's a Gold Mom's Choice Award winner. Congratulations on that. That must feel fantastic. Linda Hickam is our guest today on the Big Time Talker podcast and Zoom into Books. The book is The Tale of Little Bit. It's her very first one. One of the things that I thought was interesting is you told me the story of The Tale of Little Bit that I think authors who might be watching, and by the way, our friend Dreama Denver is watching right now online as we broadcast live, and she sends her love, is that as an aspiring author, you want to watch for the stories that are around you and think, could this be a book? And you had the foresight to see this little fish that perhaps no one would have thought of as anything but a fish that swam in circles and thought, there's a story there. And I think that's great. You have a background as a scuba diver, a long background being underwater. And I wonder how much that informed your love of fish and your wanting to tell a story about what happens underwater.
It probably did. It probably did quite a bit, Burke. What is funny is because I don't have children, I had never seen Nemo. I have seen him. I knew he was a clownfish and kind of laughed at which is found in Australia and Fiji and places
right
far away from here. And sometimes they'll put him in Caribbean type of waters, and we would kind of laugh because he would never be found there. At least we hope not. He would be very lost. And so people said, when I said that he had a bent tail, and so he was disadvantagedly able, and swam in circles round and round, and they said, oh, just like Nemo. And I went, Nemo?
What?
Nemo has what? Nemo? Oh my goodness. But mine's a real story and Nemo's cartoon. Wait. And so I had to look up and found out, that he had a short fin, but he didn't swim in circles, and I thought, oh no, am I copying something and I don't even know it,
It's your own story.
Yeah, that has happened before, where I thought something I had was very original and it wasn't. But, there's nothing new.
One of the other great themes in this story, too, is the concept of a little bit, having that physical disability and young people learning to accept others with disabilities and give them a helping hand. Most folks with disabilities, they don't want a handout. They want, a hand up occasionally, and they just want to fit in and be like everyone else. And I wonder if that was in the back of your mind when you wrote it.
Definitely. And that is a lesson I have learned from my friends that are disabled, or my friends that are other races or cultures. They just want to be accepted and fit in. They don't want anything special. So, that's the thing they, that even I realized when my jobs and things started doing, oh, you're a woman, so you should be accepted above someone else in college. I said, I don't want that. I want to earn it. I guess I'm stupid that I don't want this handout that I might be given because I'm a woman, but I would feel bad that if I had stepped on someone to get who had earned it better, and I, because I was a woman, or whatever advantage that I had. So they just want to be accepted and part of it, and they're a disabled person. Quite often they become invisible. They're not looked at. You just kind of turn away, and ignore them, and they just want to be accepted and normal, a normal kid, or an adult.
You mentioned that you do not have kids of your own, and that you sort of did I guess you call it a focus group with other people's grandkids.
Yeah.
Was it a challenge, do you think, Linda, for you to get inside the mind of an elementary school age kid, since you don't have any of your own, and write this story? Was that tough for you?
I don't think so, but maybe I did have to think about using a little more simple words than my original choice, and that's probably the only thing that I really think that I had to think about. And I do know that that my original manuscript was twice the length of this, and because I didn't think about that. A bedtime story or something like that should be pretty short, to put the child to sleep and be done with it, and the child's attention span, might not be enough to have that many words on a page and that few illustrations or something like that. And when Kathy told me that a normal book may have 12 to 14 illustrations in it, and well, Jan and I had already divided up the book, and I had decided that we needed 25, and so we just kept going, and and kind of did around that, and most all of them were used eventually in one way or the other, and because I said, I can use them for the website or other advertising purposes. And I even asked her to do one of that is used so often. I said, just for me, for fun, do a little bit with the bent tail with the little shark's fin, on the top, where a goldfish usually is, on the surface pretending to be a shark. I said, as far as I can tell, there is no copyright or anything on it. Everyone in the world uses it, and I've never seen anything on it, and it's my fish with the shark's fin on it. So, and so we just threw that, it had nothing to do with the story. We just threw that in there for fun to Kathy, and she used it in the book. So that was fun, in the acknowledgments area. But the illustrations were, one of my favorite illustrations had to do with the little bit got sick. He had a swim bladder problem, and it happens often with goldfish. That was another thing that I did in the book. I did a teaching moment on how to care properly for a goldfish, and had to tone that down a little bit because it's boring, but
Right.
You do see Jan did a beautiful, beautiful illustration. She had not read close enough that we have the rectangular tanks, and you must have, really, for them to thrive, bubbling water, adding oxygen to the water. And everyone else in the world believes, that the little round tank is enough. That's enough for a betta fish, but not for a goldfish. We've come to find they need the oxygen too. So I was trying to teach that by showing the correct, and that, we added chlorine remover to the water, a few words about the correct way to take care of the goldfish. And there are some teacher resources and fun facts about goldfish at the end of the book that dispel some of the urban myths about goldfish, because we want, they get goldfish, and I've talked to plenty of the kids in the my lines that say, I had a goldfish. I said, well, what happened? Well, do you still have the goldfish? No, he died, And I go, ooh, so how long did you have him? A week, it's like,
Uh-oh, that's
did
not
you ever
good.
take them out of the bag? We won them at the fair and we flushed them and things like that. So I'm trying to teach the kids to be a little bit better.
I think we may need to put a campaign together, Linda, for you, where we ban the phrase goldfish bowl moving forward. There are no more goldfish bowls,
No,
only
no,
goldfish tanks.
no.
So this book, and as we wrap up with Linda Hickam, the now Mom's Choice Gold Medal Award winner for her new book, The Tale of Little Bit, writing a book is tough. It's a lot of work. People, all think I could do that, but as you have learned, even though you've been around it all these years, it's tough. Do you think you'll write another one, or is this a one and done because it is so much work? What's next?
Well, Kathy and I were talking about it before we came online, and I have written 3.5 other. There are always things happening in the pond. It's kind of a magical place, and so all of them are kind of based on a true story, because that's easier for me as a novice writer to kind of have something to start with. So. And because my fish talk, and because the toad that lives next to the pond talks, and the dragonfly that comes up to the pond talks and stuff, so I can have some good stories coming up. So Kathy and I were talking about the possibility, and to get my illustrator going on one of her choice. So within the next year, yeah, I think, if Kathy likes it enough, and then it up to sales. So everybody, and I love, of course, reviews. It is sold on Amazon also, both of the books. So you can have them mailed to you from there if you don't want an autograph. And all the bookstores, my little local bookstore has ordered at least twice. And I go down there and sign them for her. So support your local bookstores, of course, buying and asking for it if they don't have it. The libraries, I've donated to the libraries, and they bought some of their own too, and they're having readings of them. So it depends on sales. If everybody likes Little Bit, then he can come back. And Buddy. Yeah.
As they say, if you really like the book, give it a 5-star review. And if you don't like the book, still give it a 5-star review.
Right.
So before I let you jump, since you just went through this journey as a first-time author, and there may be authors watching, is there maybe one piece of advice that you would give someone who thinks they'd like to write a book, especially a children's book? What would you tell them?
Well, I certainly did a lot of back research everywhere I could find, and there's a lot of free, good and bad advice there. I was always told to not pay. There's a lot of self-publishing that's done too, and some good and some bad, but not to pay an agent. That a true, real agent is not paid until he or she sells your book. I would think the same, with the publisher. There are nowadays these kind of publishers that do a kind of a package deal where you pay them, let's say, $5,000, and then they help you with the whole deal. And that may be good, that may be bad. I don't know enough about them to know whether they are doing a good job or not with that. It may be that they're doing a good job.
So maybe it's the lesson is do your homework and really learn as much as you
It really
can.
is. Yeah, do it. But especially, we always say, Homer has done a lot of workshops, and we say you've got to read a lot, read in the genre. I went to the library before I started and looked a lot, especially because I didn't know what does my age read? What do they like? And there was a little bit of it looked like a niche in nature type of stories, and to me that's important. I love it. I love nature, and that's what I say in my little coloring book when I sign it, that I heart nature. I think it's important for us to be a steward of the earth. We're going to lose it if we don't do better, and so I think that there's a lot out there, but if you find that there's a million books about one subject, then maybe pick another subject. Be unique if you can be. I don't know that mine is. It just is something that was based on a real story that I had. So that I already had my subject picked, and I had to stick with it. But yeah,
And you did, and you wrote
research.
this one all the way to a Gold Mom's Choice Award. So congratulations.
Yeah, it was a real surprise. I didn't even know she'd put me in for it. Thank you, Kathy.
That's Kathy Teets. We're talking about her like she's the all-powerful Wizard of Oz behind the curtain. Kathy Teets, the publisher of Headline Books and the publisher of The Tale of Little Bit and the companion coloring book. Linda, congratulations on the book. I think that's fantastic.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. You can pick up The Tale of Little Bit if you'd like an autographed copy and you happen to be watching or listening live before the holidays. There's still time to get it at homerhickam.com, Hickam. It's also available at Amazon, headlinebooks.com, and you can ask for it by name at your local bookstore. The Tale of Little Bit and the companion, our friends at the Pond, from award-winning author Linda Hickam. Well, there you have it. That's our Zoom into Books and our Big Time Talker podcast. Thank you, Speaker Match. Thank you, Headline Books. And thanks to our guest author, the award-winning Linda Hickam. Thank you for being here. Now go out and make it a great day. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Burke. Thank you, Kathy.